Unit 7, Reading 1.
After the U.S. Civil War, reconstruction of society in the South was a huge job and was not only about repairing damage from fighting. Many Southern whites were bitter about defeat, and after so many years of slavery, some did not see free slaves as citizens because of racism. Former slaves were poor because they did not own land and lacked education. They often continued to work on farms. Black people also lacked legal protection, so they were unsafe. If they did not show proper respect towards whites, violence could result. In 1865, the Southern states were all under military control, but President Johnson and Congress disagreed about what to do. Johnson himself was racist and stubborn. He did not want strict management of Southern states. Johnson wanted to lightly punish and forgive Confederate leaders. He did not want freed slaves to work in government. Most of Congress wanted more control over the South, protection of the rights of freed slaves, and heavier punishment of Confederate leaders. These disagreements between the President and Congress made solving these problems difficult. Republicans in Congress would even impeach Johnson in 1868 to remove him, but failed. Although Congress passed many new laws to reform the South, Democratic state governments in the South resisted. Congress then replaced Southern state governments with temporary military governments. During Reconstruction, some people from the North moved south to find work or become politicians. Many were abolitionists who wanted to work as teachers or help reform laws in the South. These outsiders were not welcome. They were given the insulting nickname carpetbagger and were accused of trying to make quick money from the ruined South. Despite these changes, whites still held nearly all of the big farms and the positions of political and economic power in the South. They usually ignored the rights of black citizens. During Reconstruction, some deadly terrorist groups were formed by white Southerners. The largest group was the Ku Klux Klan, KKK. Their goal was to terrorize the black population, prevent them from voting, and destroy their political power. The symbol of the KKK was a burning cross, and its members wore white sheets and white hoods. Some Southern elections turned violent. In 1874, armed whites attacked the Republican Louisiana state government after an election. Police and soldiers fought back. Over 30 people died in the streets of New Orleans. By 1877, the U.S. government removed its army from the South and ended Reconstruction. By this time, Southern blacks began to be treated more and more like second-class citizens, subordinate to white people. Southern states also began to create laws which separated people by color. These were called segregation or Jim Crow laws. Segregation required that blacks and whites would be kept separate for trains, schools, theaters, hospitals, marriages, in the military, and in much of public life in the South. Failing to follow these rules could result in violence, like lynching. In the 1890s, an average of 150 people a year were being murdered by lynching. By this time, neither of the nation's two big political parties were interested in supporting the rights of black people. In 1896, the Supreme Court decided that segregation was legal under the Constitution. From 1870 to 1901, 22 black politicians had worked in Congress, but from 1901 to 1929 there were none. The lives of African Americans were in a long and painful period which would have big effects for many years.